We'll be going through SEO and social media this morning. So there's quite a lot of content to cover. So in terms of if anyone has any questions, if you want to send anything through via social media at the end, there's so much for us to go through. I don't think we'll necessarily have time for a Q&A at the end, but we'll see how we get on for time. So we're Peaky Digital, we're a digital marketing agency based in Cornwall, and today I'll be going through kind of best practice for SEO, a few tools that I would recommend you're using, and then some tips for social media too. So what is SEO? I think SEO is a massive buzzword at the moment, and a lot of people think it's just kind of smoke and mirrors, but it's actually search engine optimization that it stands for, and it's the practice of increasing the quantity but also the quality of traffic into your website. So trying to get your website ranking for the keywords you want to actually appear for. So in terms of when we have a look at kind of what SEO, where you actually see your rankings, there's a couple of screenshots here. So the first one, we've got an example of homeware shop Falmouth. So the top here is what we call the map pack. And that is essentially what we pull through from Google My Business. So without a Google My Business account, which we will go through later, it's almost impossible to have any exposure on there. And then just below, this is all of your SEO. So this is your website pulling through then for terms that you actually want to appear for. On the right-hand side, we've got another example where they're actually using ads at the top. So without paying Google for this exposure, you can't appear here. Then you've got the map pack, and then actually your SEO starts all the way at the bottom here. So that's kind of just to show you where you can expect to kind of appear within Google. So what makes up SEO? So the first thing, which is I guess the bit that maybe some people forget to do, is the analysis. So we need to know what people are actually searching for, and also what are your competitors doing. We then move into the technical SEO. So is your website actually optimized for SEO? Have you got a good page speed? Because if your page is maybe taking 10 seconds to load, it's not just a bad experience for your users, but also Google won't like it as well. So everything that Google does is essentially Google sees everyone on Google as their customers. So if your website is providing a bad experience for their customers, they will start pushing you down the rankings. Then we've got content. So unless you tell Google what you actually do, they can't rank you. So do you have pages around each of your products and services, and are you writing regular blog content? If you are an interior designer and nowhere on your website does it say you're an interior designer, then Google essentially wouldn't be able to rank you for those keywords. And the final aspect is links. So do you have other people talking about you? So it's all about building trust within Google. So if you have someone like the BBC News write an article about you and link through to your website, that would be really credible, and they'd essentially push you up. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk around a couple of these bits. We won't be able to cover all of it, but I'm going to try and go through initially the analysis to try and show how you can actually get started with an SEO campaign. So the first thing to look at is keyword research. So a lot of people will think they know maybe what their customer is searching for, but when you actually kind of do the research, sometimes it's really different. So it's really important to start doing your keyword research first. So it helps you to identify gaps and opportunities. So what are your customers actually searching for? You can find out exactly what keywords people are typing into Google. We can have a look at things like your seasonality of keywords, so where you're seeing increases and decreases in search volume. You can find out how much you pay if it was a Google Ads campaign. You can see how competitive your keywords are, and we can also see exactly what competitors are ranking for. So a really quick poll to start with is, how many of you know what your clients or customers are actually searching for? So if you can all have a quick vote now. So obviously some of you might think you know, but how many of you have actually done that research to have a look? Okay. Almost all of you have voted. Perfect. So I'm going to end this poll and I am going to launch these results for you all to see. So we've got 31% of you think you know what your customers are searching for, which is fantastic, and 69% of you don't think you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you exactly how you can find it out and what software you need to use to to essentially find this information. So taking an example, this is Laura Lane Ceramics. So if you were to look at this website, have a think, and even write in the chat, because it's sometimes really useful to see what other people would search into Google. And this is where it's really interesting, because if you took a room of 40 people, a lot of people would send something really different. So I personally would probably type in ceramic mug, or maybe handmade mug. So I can see someone said they type in Cornish pottery. So any other ideas, do feel free to put them into the chat. But this is essentially where you want to be doing your research. So how do we actually know what people are searching for? So we've had another person say tea set. So already you can see there's 4 different ideas that I've said, and both of you, another one, Cornish gifts. So what we've got here is Google Ads. So even if you're not wanting to run ads themselves, then you do want to be using the Google Ads keyword planner. And what the planner does is it tells you everything that people are searching for. I'm just going to zoom into this so that you can really see it. And I've got a video to show you how to use it yourself. So when we are having a look on Google, obviously, if we think people are looking for Cornish gifts or for tea set, for example, we can then have a look at exactly how many people are searching for that. So I'm just going to launch this video, which hopefully all of you can see. So when you log into ads, I'm just going to pause that there a minute. You can sign up for an account. It's completely free. You don't have to have ads running in order to see this data. So I really would recommend signing up for an account, even if you don't want to have any ads running. So when you're loading up your account, you can go into tools and settings and go into the keyword planner. And what we do here is we can discover new keywords. So for this example here, I'm going to type in Cornish mug. And I'm also going to type in another keyword, which is handmade mug. Then I can do as many searches as I want, up to 10. So I'm going to do another few, which is ceramic mug and also Cornwall ceramics. So I'm going to take those ideas and I'm going to ask Google, based on those suggestions, what are people actually searching for? So if I just pause here, in this screenshot here, you can see that this is the keyword that someone's typing into Google. And then this is how many people are searching for it. So actually, Cornish mug, we've only got 140 people per month searching for it. Whereas ceramic mug, you've got 1,600. So in terms of what you'd actually want your website ranking for, it would be ceramic mug, because that's essentially what you'd get more website traffic from doing. So if you've made your website all tailored around Cornwall ceramics, for example, and there's only 50 people, searching for that keyword, then you're going to be really limited with the amount of traffic that actually comes to it. So this is where keyword research is really, really useful. What Google will then do is they will tell you all the other keywords around this kind of example that people are searching for. So they'll say ceramic travel mug, ceramic cup, ceramic coffee cup. So you can then have a look at all the keywords that people are searching for on Google. So it's a really useful tool, and I would definitely recommend that you have a look at using it to obviously find out this detail. What you can then do is, when you've got all of that data, you can export it into a spreadsheet and it will essentially look like this. So you can then have a look at the keyword, how many people are searching for it, how competitive it is on Google. Obviously, if it's got low competition, then not that many other people are going after that keyword. Whereas if it's got high competition, then it might take you a little bit longer, and obviously more competitors are going after it. So we can then also, in this end row here, we can have a look at all the seasonality. So for the word glamping, as you'd expect, a lot more people are searching for that keyword in September versus October, and even less in November, and then it picks up again in January, as probably people are thinking about booking the holidays. So it's really useful data, and without this data, we don't really know what we need to optimize our website for. If you didn't want to be using Google Ads, there's another tool called SEMRUSH, and they've got a keyword magic tool. And this is a paid for SEO software, but they do offer a 30-day free trial. So I would definitely recommend that you all sign up for a 30-day free trial, because it's free. Just make sure that you cancel your subscription after 30 days. And I've done another little video just to show you how this can work. So in a really similar way as the keyword planner, we're going to type in some keywords. So if we search for handmade mug and we do a search, then again, it shows you all of the things around handmade mugs as to what people are searching for, how many people are searching for them, and what the competition is. The other thing that SEMRUSH does as well is it will also allow you to see what questions people are asking around it as well. So then you can see one of the asked question is, can you microwave handmade ceramic mugs? So when it's obviously a more broad term, you'll get lots and lots of questions around that you can also start using within your content. Another really useful tool is Google Search Trends. Again, this is a completely free tool. And this is really interesting because this shows you not necessarily individual keyword data, and I've got another video, but it kind of shows you what the trends are within a certain area. So if we search for the word eco products, for example, and we change it to the United Kingdom, looking at the past 12 months, but we can also change that to kind of a larger time period. So if we look at the past 5 years, this essentially gives us an idea as to what the trends are doing. So for example, if you were selling, I don't know, leather jackets, for example, you might find that for some reason your website traffic's going down. That might just be because the trend of search is actually going down, and it's not because of your website is necessarily not driving the traffic you need. So this is a really interesting tool where you can just look at trends as an example, and especially if you were looking at launching a new product, for example, onto your site, you can then have a look at whether there is an upward trend onto that or not. The final tool that I'm just going to talk about is Answer the Public, and this is really good for finding out all the questions that people are searching into Google. So you essentially put your keyword in where it says e.g. chocolate, and it will tell you everything someone's searching for. So for example, if you put in yoga in there, then you might get a question of what's the difference between yoga and Pilates. So again, another really good tool and free as well. So once you've got your keyword research, you'll then want to have a think about how your website's actually structured. So the way that your website's structured, it needs to be logical. It needs to be obviously really easy for your user to understand how to navigate through your website. And you also want it to be easy for Google to go through and crawl your site. So kind of best practice of website structure is you'd have your homepage. Then you'll have what we'd call a main topic page. So for example, you'd have your homepage. If you were a photographer, your main topic page might be photography. And then if you did wedding photography and pet photography, for example, then your subtopic page would be one page for wedding photography and one page for pet photography. So if you were just trying to target every keyword under that one main topic page, so if you just had your home page and then you just led everyone through to a photography page, which mentioned about family photography, pet photography, portraits, then actually Google's going to get really confused and it won't really know what you actually want them to rank you for. So thinking about all your different services, every one of your services and your products does need to have its own landing page. And this is how you'll make it a lot easier, not just for your consumer to find the content, but also for Google to be able to rank you for those different keywords. So you'd obviously want to be using your keyword research to find out what people are searching for, to then work out what new pages you actually need on your website. So this kind of just goes through I guess the final part as well, is what are the question-based keywords as well, because questions as well really help for what we call long tail keywords. So if someone is searching for one of those frequently asked questions, then that's one of the best ways to actually rank on Google, is through blogging. And then some other on-site factors that you might want to think about. Kind of the main thing is really your page title. So you can edit that within the back end of your CMS, whether that's WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, whatever it is that you use. And within your page title, you really need to make sure that you're using that keyword. So whatever it is that people are searching for most, I'd really recommend using it within your page title. And I've got a screen share as well in the next slide that will show you how important that actually is. There's things like your URL. So if your URL doesn't mention your keyword in it, then you might want to obviously optimize that. Your images on your website, Google cannot read PDFs, they cannot read images. So without labeling them for Google, Google won't know what they are. So always make sure that you're actually labeling your images. Then you've got your headings. So you've got something called a H1 and a H2 tag. So you always want to make sure that you've got one heading 1 and then as many heading 2s as you want, that it breaks up lots of content quite nicely. And then you've got things like your sitemap, so making sure that if you're using WordPress, for example, you've got things like Yoast, which will allow you to generate your sitemap. I won't get too techie today. So a really quick example here as to why your page title is so important. So I'm going to do a search for ceiling lights. So when we bring up the search page, here you can see this, where it says number 1 and it's blue, that's what we call your page title. So you can see that in the page title, where it actually says ceiling lights, that is what it's actually pushing out to me, because they can see it's really relevant to my search. So if I didn't have the keyword ceiling lights within my page title, I probably wouldn't actually be able to rank for this page. So all of the first page rankings are really, really similar to what I'm actually searching for. So this is the real importance as to what you want, why you want your page title to actually have the keyword that you want to be focusing on. Obviously, Google is clever and it's getting more and more clever. So it understands that ceiling lights and ceiling lighting is the same thing. It has something called an LSI index, which essentially shows Google that there are different keywords that are actually have the same meaning behind them. So you don't need to stuff in things like ceiling lights, ceiling lighting, because it will understand that it's the same thing. So that's a little bit on kind of how you kind of do the initial research. And now we're going to think about how visible is your website to Google and also potential customers. So the first thing that I would recommend looking at is going into SEMRUSH with your 30-day free trial and having a look at whether you are ranking for any keywords at the moment and also how much traffic is coming to your website. And you can also have a look at that through your Google Analytics, which we'll go through shortly as well. So when we're looking at kind of ranking keywords, we want to find out what keywords your website is currently being triggered on, and also what keywords you want your website to also be ranking for. Within this, we can also then have a look at what your competitors are ranking for. So if you know that someone has a really good online visibility, then you can have a look at how they're doing that. So you can see what keyword people are finding them through, and also obviously how they are, also what landing pages as well they're using. So having a look at the content they're actually pushing out to their users. So I've done another video just to kind of show you how to do this. So we've used Laura Lane as another example. So we do a search on her URL, just on this domain analytics overview here. And this will show us everything that that website is actually ranking for. So we can see that at the moment she's ranking for 168 keywords. We can see that she's got 78 other websites talking to her. And then when we load it further, we can see all the actual keywords that she is ranking for. So if we scroll down here, as you'd expect, you can see she's ranking obviously for her brand name, and then she's ranking for things like Cornish pottery, Cornwall pottery, shallow ceramic dish. So then you can see any website what they're actually ranking for. And I mean, I find it really useful, but I obviously love data. But it is really a really good task for you to do. And I'd recommend doing that all within that 30-day free trial. So then we move on to something called Google Search Console. So just going to launch another poll. And this is essentially just, do you have a Search Console account set up? Yes or no. So if you can all have a vote now. Okay. Great. So I'm just going to end that poll. I can see some people saying they're not sure. You can just type in Google Search Console into Google and you can see if you've then got an account when you log in or not. But that's really interesting. So only 12% of you know that you have a Google Search Console account set up, and 88% of you don't have one set up. So it's a really great tool, and again, it's free. And anyone who is actually trying to appear within Google more should definitely get one set up. And it's really nice and easy to do. So this is the page that you will come to. And what it is, it's really great for knowing if you've got any errors on your website, if you have ever been given a manual penalty by Google, but also it's where you submit your sitemap into Google. So your sitemap is essentially what your site structure is, and without submitting that into Google, it will make it hard to crawl. So this is essentially how you tell Google to go in and crawl your website. So if you don't have a Search Console set up, I definitely recommend getting that set up as a priority. You can also fetch your website to Google. So if you make lots of new changes to your website, you can then ask Google to go in and view the changes to essentially make you push up the rankings. You can have a look at what keywords people are searching for in order to find your website organically. You can identify what pages on your website people are going to most. You can also then see what websites are linking through to your website, but more importantly, you can actually what we call disavow spammy links, and that's telling Google not to let other links go into your website. So if you had 123spam.com talking about your website, Google would actually say, well, that's a really spammy website talking about you. We don't really want that linking through. So what it can do is you can then tell Google, I don't want that website linking through to me, to essentially reduce your spam score. The other thing you can do is you can check for broken links. So it kind of tells you how good the overall health of your website is. And you can also confirm that something called schema markup is actually working as well. So it's a really good tool, and I would definitely recommend anyone who hasn't got one uploading it. And if you do have one, I'd again just be in it once a month, checking that everything's in good health and making sure that you've definitely got your sitemap submitted in there. So that's the first tool. The second tool is Google Analytics. Again, another free Google tool, which is really useful. So I'm just going to launch another very quick poll on how many of you have a Google Analytics account set up. So if you all want to have a vote now. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to end that poll. So a lot more of you know that you've got Google Analytics set up. So 55% of you have Analytics set up, which is great. And 45% of you don't. So for those of you who have it set up, hopefully we'll just cover a few really quick things that are good to have a look at in there. And then for anyone who doesn't have one set up, again, I definitely recommend setting one up, and it is all completely free. So what Google Analytics does is it gives you more insight as to who's actually visiting your website. So you can have a look at the age, the gender, where they're based in the UK or further afield, what device they're using, even down to their browser. We can have a look at whether they're logging into both, say, desktop and mobile. We can have a look at their interests and also new versus existing. So I've just popped a few screenshots here. So this is where we can see kind of age and gender. So this kind of really helps you to work out what the demographic of your online website is. So if, for example, for this website here, we can see that it's predominantly female. So that would mean that actually that's good insight that you can actually start tailoring your market more to maybe your female market. And then same here again with age group. This website here gets most age between 25 and 34. So again, you might want to start tailoring your marketing messaging, your social media posts, for example, more towards the people that you actually know are visiting your website. Then you can have a look at the location. So we can have a look at how many users are coming to the site, what they're doing, so how long they're actually spending on the website, how many pages they're visiting. And then if you've got conversion tracking set up, which is something that we would cover on more of a techie SEO class, but you can then have a look at what the conversion rate is. So you can have a look at where in the UK people are actually making that transaction if you're a shop, or if you're a B2B site, then you can have a look at where people are, for example, filling in your contact form from. Then we can have a look at device. So are more people coming from mobile, desktop or tablet? Kind of what percentage of users there are. And again, whether you've got, for some reason, if your desktop is converting much, much better than your mobile, is that because your mobile experience isn't necessarily as strong as your desktop? So it does uncover lots of data. And although this probably isn't as useful, it does even go as granular as what browser people are using. So are they using Chrome, Safari, Samsung, for example? And then we can see new versus existing. So are you driving new customers to the website, or is it mainly your existing customers who are coming to your site? So again, that will really depend on your business model as to whether you're trying to get returning visitors or whether you're relying on new visitors always coming to your website. So I guess that comes down to, are you more of a repeat purchase, or are you a one-off purchase? Because if you are just a one-off purchase, obviously you want to make sure that it's always new visitors coming into your website. Whereas if you are something like dog food, for example, and you rely on people coming to the site each month to make their order, then you'd want to see a higher percentage of returning visitors. Okie doke. So then we're going to move into competitor research. So for the next poll, I'm just going to ask you, do you know what your competitors are doing online? So how many of you actually keep track of what competitors are doing online? So if you answer yes or no. Okay, so I'm just going to stop that poll there and share the results. So 31% of you know what your competitors are doing, which is great, and 69% of you aren't sure what your competitors are doing. So having a look at what your competitor behavior is, obviously you never want to copy what competitors are doing, but it is always really useful to know what is happening within your industry. So I'd also say that what your competitor, who you might think your competitor is, might not actually be your online competitor. So anyone who is an online competitor is someone who actually appears based on your keyword research for the keyword you want to appear for. So a task that I would recommend doing after this webinar is Googling your product or your service and actually having a look at who appears within kind of the top 3 spaces within Google. Anyone who's kind of below that isn't necessarily a competitor online. And if you have kind of an online presence as well as an offline presence, you might find that you have different competitors for both online and offline. So the questions that I would be asking for is, who are my competitors? What keywords should I be targeting? What keywords are my competitors targeting and ranking for in Google? What topics should I be covering? And also, what do you need to do in order to beat the competition? So obviously, in order for you to rank ahead of your competitors, you need to know what they're doing in order to do better than them, essentially. And then the final part of the SEO part is Google My Business. So obviously there's a lot more to be covered on SEO, but I am conscious of time. So the final tool, which again is completely free, is Google My Business. So final poll for the SEO side of things is, do you have a Google My Business account? So if you could all have a look, have a vote there, yes or no. Okie doke. So I'm going to end that poll and share the results. So 45% of you have a Google My Business account, which is great, and 55% of you don't. So I'm just going to run through kind of what Google My Business is and also all the different areas on there. I'm also, though, just going to pick up on one of these questions in the chat, is that someone has said that it wouldn't work for us as it's all of the kind of bigger search engines that appear in the top places. It's not impossible to rank over bigger people. It just might mean becoming more niche. So for example, if you'd wanted to rank for holiday cottages as a generic keyword, obviously that is really competitive and that would take a long time. Whereas if you started kind of going more to, I don't know, say you had holiday cottages in Falmouth, then you can quite easily get ahead of the competition, even if they are much bigger than obviously yourselves. And that's because you can actually become a lot more relevant. So just because you're a smaller site than someone else, I mean, we've got clients who are much smaller than people like Amazon, but we're able to outrank Amazon because we're actually a lot more specific and a lot more targeted than those websites. So I wouldn't necessarily feel deflated if you think that, because there are definitely ways of doing it. So moving back to Google My Business, so obviously Google My Business is where the map pack information is when I first showed you that first slide in the webinar. And this is where it's really great for local search. So if people are, say you're a restaurant and people are looking for restaurants near me, for example, this is one of the best ways of being able to appear within the search engines. So without this, you cannot get any exposure on the maps. So locations, this is essentially what your dashboard will look like in Google My Business. And there are loads of different features that you can use in order to optimize your Google My Business. And by utilizing each of these different features, that's essentially how you get ahead of your competition. So that's how you get ahead of the other businesses. So the first one is posts. So if you're writing blogs, if you have any offers, if you've got any events, then you should be uploading these as posts, especially events. So if you've got, for example, a Christmas market on, you'd want to be adding that as a post to let more people know about it. And posts are something that a lot of people don't think about adding to their Google My Business, but this is how it all helps to build up your bigger picture. Then you've got your general business information. So you've got opening times, address, phone number, business type or description. Obviously make sure that all of these are filled in as much as possible, because this is going to give as much context to Google so that they know what to appear for. Rather than, obviously, if you don't tell them whereabouts in the UK you are. So if we didn't say we weren't in Falmouth, then it'll be really hard for us to obviously rank for people searching for us around the Falmouth area. Then we've got insights, and this essentially tells you what people are doing when they get to your Google My Business. So are they calling you? Are they asking for directions? Or are they going through to your website? And there's some really good data that you can actually find on here so that you can see how people are obviously engaging with your business. Then we've got reviews. So reviews are really great for trying to build up credibility, not just for Google, but also for potential clients who are coming to your website. So when you have received a review, obviously try and ask as many people to leave reviews for you as possible, but also make sure that you're also replying to reviews, whether they're good or bad, because if you're replying to reviews, then again, that's another tick for Google. Then we've got photos. So again, there's option to add both photos and videos into your Google My Business. So if you are a shop, for example, or even if you are B2B and you've got maybe some YouTube videos on how-tos, make sure you're adding all of this into here, because again, this is all kind of equipping your business with as much information as possible. And for any customers, they'll obviously see all of this data. And then we've got what we call products and services. So if you're an online shop, you can add in all of your products onto here. And that means that people will be able to see all of your products within your Google My Business. And also if you're a B2B, you can start adding in your services. So again, this allows people to see instantly what it is that you offer. And if people are looking for SEO or PPC in our example, for example, then we can obviously start ranking better for those type of keywords. So that is a real whistle-stop tour of SEO. There's obviously a lot more to cover, but we only had half an hour to cover that little bit. So there's lots that you can obviously find out about, but I would say just as a starting point, if you don't have any of those softwares and tools set up, then get them set up. And if you do have them set up, just make sure that you're making 100% use of them. So we're going to look at social media now. So one of the most frequently asked questions or sayings that we're told is, my customers don't use social media. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to run through some statistics and also show you what the demographics are on each of the platforms, because I can guarantee that no matter what industry you're in, one of the social media platforms will be perfect for your target market. So obviously people are using social media a lot more than ever, and they're also constantly on devices. So 87% of people use more than one device at a time. So you might be sat here watching this webinar on your laptop, but you also might be looking at your emails on your phone, for example, or you might have the TV on in the background. People are constantly on laptop, tablets, mobile, and also at the same time. There are on average 7.4 devices per household, which is a lot. And also 5 hours is spent on social media every day. So there are lots of stats here which kind of show just how active people actually are on the social media networks. So on Facebook, there are 40 million active users. This is just for the UK. And it's quite an even split of 52% female and 48% male. There are over 60 million active business pages on Facebook globally, which is absolutely huge. And obviously Facebook are trying to really monetize their platform. They are decreasing their reach. So if you have 100 followers and you are starting to realize that when you send out a post, only about one person is seeing your post, that's because that's Google and Facebook and their algorithms. So on average, only 1 to 2% of your audience will actually see your posts, because Facebook are really trying to get advertisers into actually spending money essentially on their platform. Very frustrating for businesses, obviously, but very clever of Facebook. So one of the largest audiences on Facebook is actually the 25 to 34 audience, and that's across both male and female, with the second most popular being 35 to 44. So if that is your target market, then obviously this is a great platform for you to be using. Then you've got YouTube. So YouTube is now the second most popular social media channel, with almost as many users as Facebook. And it's also starting to be the first place that people go for both reviews, how-to guides, and also just questions on the internet. So there are 37 million adults using the platform in the UK, and the amount of people who are kind of discovering brands on YouTube is also up. So 90% of people say they discover new brands and products on YouTube now, which is absolutely huge. So again, I know YouTube is hard because a lot of people don't have the assets in terms of videography, but if you do, then definitely get them uploaded onto YouTube. Again, YouTube you can optimize just like you would a Google page. Then we've got Instagram. So I guess this is one of the most controversial platforms that we work on, because a lot of people instantly think it's quite a young audience and it's not necessarily a business platform. However, we are seeing that businesses are getting more and more traction from Instagram, even if you are B2B. So 24 million users in the UK, so 42% of the population are now on Instagram. Again, 54% female, 46% male. And I think some people automatically think it is a lot more female-led than it actually is. And 80% of users say that they follow a business or a brand on Instagram. And I guess for Instagram, it's a lot more inspiration-led. So it's people who are looking for it being a lot more visual than maybe something like Twitter or Facebook. Then we've got Twitter. This is much more of a male audience. It is on the decrease in terms of kind of advertising and also users. So people are using Twitter a lot less than they used to. But there is still 24% of the population on here. And it is a lot younger, in the 38% of Twitter users are between the age of 18 to 29. So it's much more male, and it is a younger audience as well. Then we've got LinkedIn. So if you're B2B, this will probably be a platform that you'll want to be exploring. 25.6 million people in the UK have a LinkedIn profile. And also LinkedIn claim that they are responsible for 80% of B2B leads on social media. So if you are looking for that B2B market, then obviously this would be a good platform for you to be utilising. So another poll to make sure you're still awake after all my talking. Do you keep an eye on what your competitors are doing on social media? If you could all vote yes or no. Okie doke, I'm going to end that poll. Okay, so 70% of you have a look at what your competitors are doing on social media, with 30% of you not. And that's actually really interesting, because a lot more of you are obviously keeping an eye on your competition on social media than you are on Google. And I guess it's easier in a way because it's a lot more visual, but there are some ways that maybe you aren't looking at, which hopefully I can show you about today. So the first thing that I would say is to have a look at what your competitors' profiles are doing. So what content are they pushing out? What hashtags are they using? What's their tone of voice like? And what sort of assets have they got? Use insight tools, so SEMRUSH, which we spoke about earlier with the 30-day free trial. Have a look at who is actually advertising. So they've got a social media area on there where you can schedule all your posts, but you can also have a look at what your competitors are doing. Have a visit of their website and then see if you get remarketed to them on your social media. So that's how you can see if they are running any ads. And also there's your Facebook tool, which is your transparency tool, which lets you see who is advertising on Instagram. So this is a really great tool, and I've got a screenshot here of what it is. So if you go onto a Facebook brand, you'll see on the left-hand side something called page transparency. And when you press see more, you will get this little box here, which will tell you whether a page is running ads or not. And you can have a look at this on any business page to see what ads they're running. If they're not running ads, it will just say that they're not currently running ads. So I've done it obviously on ours. We just have one small remarketing campaign running, and this will show you what our creative is and also what our text is. So if you are thinking about advertising on social media and you want to have a look at what your competitors are doing, then again, use this tool completely free to have a little bit of a nosy. And you can also do the same on LinkedIn as well. So if you're B2B and you're looking at setting up some ads on LinkedIn, then you can have a look at ads on the bottom left-hand side, and then it will show you what ads people are actually running on here. So it's really useful to have a look at what people are doing. So a lot of people also are trying to grow their social media network. So how to find your audiences and also maximize your reach. So first thing is call to actions. So what do you actually want people to do from your posts? So is it you want them to discover more, start today, book now, explore the range, shop now, whatever it is, make sure that you're adding in a call to action so that people know what to do from the post. Hashtags, make sure that you're using hashtags. So on Instagram especially, making sure that you're using at least 10 hashtags that are relevant to your business, services, and also your audience. And in terms of delivery, think about what your audience are doing and at what time. So I've got a little bit around kind of social media times, but if you are an online shop, you're going to be posting at different times to if you're a B2B business. And you can find new audiences through lots of different tools. Again, lots of these are free. So Right Tag is one of them, and you can put in what the hashtag is you're looking for, and it will tell you what hashtag is most searched for. So how many of you are actually using hashtags? If you just vote yes or no as to whether you're using hashtags. Okie doke. So amazing, 74% of you are currently using hashtags, which is great, and 26% of you aren't. So I'm just going to talk a little bit around hashtags now. So using a hashtag, it will increase your reach. So without having that hashtag in there, people can't search for the hashtag and obviously bring up your post. And obviously try and make sure that you're using hashtags that are as relative to your product, service, or industry as possible. So obviously the example here, all you do is you literally search for what it is that you think your product is, and then it will show you how many people are actually searching for it and what other hashtags are actually relevant as well. So if your hashtag has multiple words, so for example, for us digital marketing, make sure that you don't put a space in it because it would then will not become a hashtag. On Instagram, if you can get obviously more than 10, anywhere up to 30 is what they say is the optimum amount of space. And also in terms of kind of whether you keep your hashtags on your post, whether you put them in the comments, it's entirely up to you. They all have exactly the same effect. Some companies decide to go back to a later date and delete the hashtags out just to make it look visually nicer. But obviously you don't need to do that. So that's how you kind of look at hashtags. And in terms of where you appear on the hashtag page, it will all depend on one, competition. So how many other people are using that hashtag. Number two is what time it's shared. So obviously newer posts are going to be further up. So the more people are using that hashtag, the quicker you're going to lose that exposure. Engagement. So how many likes and comments do you have on your post? The more engagement you get on your social media, the more likely it is that Instagram, Facebook, Twitter are going to start showing your posts. And also audience. So how engaged are your audience? Obviously social media, as it kind of says on the tin, is all about being social, and social platforms don't want you to just use it as a sales platform. It wants you to be using it as more of building up a community. So if all you're doing is pushing out sales, and you're getting really low engagement, then that will impact your overall engagement and also reach of hashtags. So when you're thinking about what hashtags you should be using, I've just listed 4 tools here. So you've got Hashtagify, Talkwalker, Right Tag, and Later. And they all give really good insights as to what hashtags are being searched for most, and will give you recommendations on what else. There's loads and loads of tools if you do searches for them. There's lots out there. So I think this is our penultimate poll, which is, do you monitor what time of the day you're posting, or are you just posting as and when you have time? So how many of you monitor yes, or how many of you don't monitor? Okie doke. So I will end that poll there. So 46% of you are monitoring time of day, which is amazing, and 54% of you aren't. So monitoring time of day will obviously help you to increase your engagement if you're posting when you know your audience are online most. And there are lots and lots of tools out there and insights and reports which will tell you at what time of day is best for you to post. Obviously with coronavirus, that might have changed quite drastically, as kind of for B2B, you might find that on people's commute, for example, when they're on the train, the bus, the tube, they were getting, they were on their mobiles more. So kind of 7 till 9 was quite a key time for B2B. Whereas since people have started moving towards working from home, you don't have that commuting time. So actually, people aren't necessarily going to have better engagement because maybe they're spending that extra hour in bed, for example. But there's a tool called Sprout Social, which is a social media tool, and they have all these reports on, depending on what sector you are, exactly what time of day it is best for you to post. So for the consumer goods engagement, you can see that actually Monday at around 2 p.m. is peak, and the best time is actually Wednesday at 3 p.m. So there are lots of reports for all the different industries that you can have a look at, kind of split testing all your times of day as well. And obviously, as you get more data, you can start seeing for yourself when your audience are engaging with you most. So then we've got kind of how you plan and create your content calendar. So we'd always recommend that you get a content calendar in place. So even if it's just a simple Excel document, and you think about what you've got going on in the month, whether there are any national days, for example, and ensure that there's an even rotation of themes. So if you're just talking about the same thing all the time, then it's not going to be as engaging as if you're able to mix up your content. So a lot of people sometimes think, what can I actually talk about? So I've listed some ideas here of content themes that you can think about. So one would be your services, so product details, what are the benefits of actually using your product, whether you've got new launches, shop features or competitions. Then we've got culture, so people actually really love hearing about team. They love putting a face to a name, and they like to see who the team is behind when they're picking up the phone and talking to. So do you have any team news, brand story and your values, any behind the scenes, any case studies or business news? Then you've got industry, so news articles, industry reports, any new announcements and trends. Then we've got generic, so are there any national and international days, for example? Obviously, we've just had Black Friday, which if you are online, then you would probably have wanted to have tapped into. Seasonal and holidays, and also any trending topics as well. So, for example, even when Love Island is on, if you are a company who can tap into that when so many people are talking about it, then absolutely try to. And then you've got lifestyle, so any tips and tricks, life hacks, product hacks, pushing any of your blogs. Obviously, we'll always say try and think about 5 different content themes. And that way you can, when you're thinking about what content to push out on socials, you can take a post from each of these content themes across the week, so that you're not just pushing out the same ideas all the time. And also adapt to your climate. So especially at the moment with coronavirus, we've got a few tips. So I think when it all kicked off, a lot of people tried to pause all their marketing activity. Just don't ever pause marketing activity. You need to be talking to your consumers. You can be building upon your community. So obviously we've just had another lockdown. So if you weren't able to be open, you could still start talking to your customers, get them excited for when they could actually start engaging with you again. Spread positivity. There's obviously a lot of negativity in the news. So if you're positive, then it'll be a breath of fresh air to people. Try not to use scheduling tools during this time. The news is changing so much that if you're then pushing out irrelevant messaging and you've maybe forgotten to pause any of your posts, for example, that might be irrelevant, it might come across as not good. Always try and add value, because people are obviously reading your social media, but if all you're doing is pushing sales messages in front of you, then your engagement is likely to go down. Try and join in conversation and move away from clicks and conversions and try and join in with conversation. So try and get people actually engaging with you. With the current climate, people are spending a lot more time online, more people are at home, people aren't going out as much, so they are online more, and social media is going to be absolutely key. So creating a great post. So when you're thinking about creating your content, you can have either short content or long content. If you use emojis, that's really great for engagement. However, make sure that you don't ever replace an emoji instead of a word. Because obviously you will, if someone's got an old phone, for example, they just won't be able to see it. And use a consistent tone of voice. So think back to kind of what we use as a task is, what celebrity would your brand be if they were a person? Think of that and think about inspiration, so that you're not kind of just all over the shop with your tone of voice. Also try and build post engagement. So ask users questions and encourage them to try and tag friends or relatives in to try and increase your engagement and audience. And remember to keep it topical and appropriate for your audience, and don't just be spammy. So an example here is from Domino's. So if you could share this pizza with anyone in the world, who would it be? Drop their names below. So obviously they're just trying to get in front of as many people as possible. The more people that tag in their friends, the more people that will actually see their post. And then in terms of things like Instagram stories, try and build up post engagement. So you can start using polls, FAQs, countdowns, quizzes, mentions, put music on there. There's lots more that you can do to actually get people physically engaging with your business now, rather than just reading your content. And a couple of examples just below is obviously Joe Wicks. He did very well over lockdown with his PE with Joe. And he was pushing out kind of, are you tuning in? Yes or no? So trying to get people to actually engage with him. Doing swipe ups. You can only do swipe ups if you've got kind of 10,000 plus followers. But if you are in that position, then you can start swiping up stuff. And also trying to just get people engaged with what he's doing with his life. So what should I do? Should I run or cycle? And getting people to vote. So that's actually getting people to physically engage rather than just consume his content. And then we've got some others where people are trying to get you to make comments, and also use countdown timers as well. So then we're almost at the end. I am very conscious of time. We've got visuals. So obviously making sure that you're just not always using stock imagery, because it will just not get great engagement. Obviously trying to use a mixture of lifestyle imagery, product imagery, and even making your own graphics. I've got an example here of something called Canva. This is an amazing free tool, which is great for social media posts. A really quick demo. It shows you all the different formats. You can use Instagram posts, animated social media, presentations, videos, logos, and there's so much option. You don't need to be a designer to make them. So it's a great tool that I definitely recommend exploring. Another one is Unsplash. This is all free stock photography. So if you do need stock and you don't necessarily want to be paying for a big subscription, then Unsplash is a great tool to be using. And if you can get user generated content, then try to. Obviously GoPro do an amazing job of this. They essentially just get people to tag them in with their photography that they've used on their GoPro, and they can then use that across their social media. So they don't need to be paying for photographers all the time. And the very final part of the session is scheduling. So scheduling tools. Final poll is, how many of you are actually using scheduling tools rather than manually posting your social media content? I know some of you are saying that I'm going really quick and you can't take notes. I can send over to anyone who obviously would like these slides after the session. Just again, message me on social media with your email address. So we've got 55% of you are using scheduling tools and 45% of you aren't. So there are advantages and disadvantages of scheduling tools, which I'm really quickly going to go over. There are loads of scheduling tools out there. So you've got Buffer, you've got Hootsuite, which are these two examples here. And I guess the advantages of a scheduling tool is it does save a huge amount of time. You can pre-plan all your content in one big session, and you can just schedule it all out over the time. It allows you to have a really easy social media presence. And the scheduling tools also allow some analytics as well. So it will tell you what your performance is, what the best time of day it is to post. So they are, I guess, the advantages, in that it is really time saving. And your disadvantages would be that you need to be really reactive. So you need to be able to quickly jump on and disable any planned posts depending on cultural events like coronavirus. You've got limited features available on free versions, so you can only have like a set amount of posts going out. So it does mean that sometimes you need to pay for them. You need pictures in specific formats to post out, otherwise it just will look really bizarre when you post it, and it won't look very professional. You obviously won't have as much oversight of channels on a daily basis because you are not logging in and personally checking through the feed. You're not engaging with your customers, which is a big negative. And it can also limit your reach, especially on Instagram. So this is essentially what is the negatives and also the positives. So if you're really tight on time and you just need posts out, I definitely recommend it. If not, then I would say try and do it manually because it's always going to be better. So Buffer and also Hootsuite are two of the kind of the most common scheduling tools. And this is how Buffer works. You can literally see the times of day that they're recommending that you schedule your posts in. You click on the box and then you can essentially schedule out whatever it is that you want to, and it will go out manually. So that was a lot of information, I know. Anyone who does want the slides, please just message us on Instagram with your email address or on Facebook, and I will send it all over to you. And thank you very much for coming. We have a social media event which you can sign up to on Eventbrite in January, which will be a lot more in detail and a lot slower than this one, should you want to. And we'll also be launching an SEO one, so keep an eye out for any of the Eventbrite stuff as well. And that's everything from me.
Natalie, thank you. That was fantastic. 100 slides before 11 p.m. I don't know how you've done it. It's incredible. So thank you very much. Even for someone who works in comms like myself, I found that incredibly insightful, particularly the work or your talk around Google My Business and whatnot. Very, very good. So thank you to you. Thank you to everybody for coming along. As I said, the session has been recorded and that will be shared with everybody if they want to rewatch it and go back and take a few notes. And as Natalie said, the slides can be shared. In terms of the Skills Hub, if anybody would like to brush up on these skills and feel as though that's something they need to add to their repertoire to make their business better, please do feel free to contact us at the Skills Hub. We will be in touch post this session with a little feedback option, survey, and we'll also be in touch to see if you're interested in working with us. The same goes for working with Natalie and the crew at Peaky Digital. As it's 11 o'clock, it's ticked over past 11. I'll let everybody go. Natalie, thank you very much. Fantastic session. Everybody, thank you very much for coming along. Have a lovely weekend. It's probably not too early to say Merry Christmas. It's the 11th of December. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Natalie. That was fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome. I know it's a lot to cover in a really short space of time.
You did it.
But hopefully people can then go back and obviously read some more of the content. So yeah, hopefully it was useful.
Exactly.